Welcome back to Gangs All Here, our Jets podcast from the New York Post. I'm Jake Brown. Brian Costello will join me in just a minute. Jets lose. Shocker. 32-6 in Buffalo, falling to 4-6 on the season, and their playoff hopes are slim, unlike my fat ass. They are slim as hell. And Zach Wilson's era in New York is dead. 32-6. They're 4-6. They're out of the race. No Aaron Rodgers. I'm sorry. He's not coming back in December like a white knight on a horse to save the Jets. It's over. It's a wrap. Finally, Robert Saleh had the cojones to bench Zach Wilson towards the end of the third quarter. He puts Tim Boyle in. And for everyone tweeting me, look what Tim Boyle did. Look, he stinks too. He can't move the ball. Oh, so he gets critiqued for a quarter. And Zach Wilson over 3 years doesn't get critiqued, but gets every excuse in the book for him. Is that how this checks out? Boyle 1 quarter. Oh, he sucks. Zach Wilson 3 years. Oh no, Zach bad offensive line, bad coaching. Oh no, Zach will be fine. He gives us the best chance to win. Stop with the excuses. It's over for Zach Wilson. He will not, and he should not touch the field again in a New York Jets uniform. Send him to the Commanders. Cut him. Get rid of him when the season's over. I don't want to hear Zach Wilson and the Jets ever again. And I get it. The Jets today, again, more and more injuries. Chris Glazer started at right guard. Mekhi Becton injured his ankle and had to leave this game. I get it. You're without Becton, AVT, McGovern, Brown. You got 4 backups there on the offensive line. I get it. Nathaniel Hackett's play calling, terrible. Nathaniel Hackett went up to the press box or the box, the play calling, whatever the box is called. He went up to the box away from the sidelines to call the plays. How about Hackett goes to the moon to call the plays next? How about you send him up to the moon? Call it up there with Louis Armstrong. How about that? Put him in a NASA suit. How about you call the plays like that? He puts Boyle in. Listen, Garrett Wilson did nothing today. Garrett Wilson was bad. Sauce Gardner was bad. Guys are clearly pressing, trying to do so much to help this team. And they're not getting it done. Neil Armstrong, I'm sorry. Louis Armstrong is the one that played the trumpet. And we're all playing taps because the Jets are dead. Neil Armstrong. That's where Nathaniel Hackett will share some cheese on the moon. Neil Armstrong, Nathaniel Hackett. Moon calling plays or whatever they're calling because it ain't much of an offense. Zach Wilson didn't complete 1 pass to a wide receiver. How is that remotely possible? 7 for 15, 81 yards, touchdown and interception. The touchdown essentially saved him from coming out to the second half. If they don't score in the first half, that touchdown, I'm convinced that Boyle started off the second half. They score, you had to keep them in because they had a little bit of momentum, down 10. You know, you knew the game was off to a terrible start when Xavier Gipson fumbles it on the kickoff. Jets defense gets the job done, holds them in a field goal, but that was a sign. Opening kickoff, turnover, it was due to be a bad day. And good God, was it. Zach really should have had 2 picks. His first pick, it should have been a throwaway, but he threw it to no one, and it was a dropped interception. The next play, interception, intended for Garrett Wilson. I don't know what he was thinking on that interception. And you should have known that it was going to be a bad drive and end ugly when he backpedaled to get on the field and he fell over. The Jets sideline was cracking up. We've all been cracking up. They were cracking up because he sucks. And stop with the stupid excuses for him. I'm not saying anyone on the Jets roster is better than him at quarterback. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to tell me that. I know Tim Boyle is not much better if he is than Zach Wilson, and neither is Trevor Siemian. But if you're a team that's about accountability and holding guys accountable, and you hold CJ Uzomah accountable, you bench him, Jeremy Rucker gets more snaps, good. We wanted that. If you wanted to hold Nathaniel Hackett accountable, you put him up to the box, see if that helped. It clearly didn't. You held him accountable. You wanted to hold Michael Carter accountable, so you cut his ass, and you wanted to play Izzy. You did that, so you held him accountable. So when does the quarterback get held accountable? When I'm in an old person's home in 85 years? When does that happen? So finally you hold him accountable and you bench him. And listen, Tim Boyle at least got the ball out. I think he obviously turned it over and should have had 2 picks. One was overturned because it was dropped. He didn't look great. But you're judging Tim Boyle in a 29-6 game. He comes in for a quarter, a little bit over a quarter, barely any time the team's getting smacked around. That's not really a fair time to evaluate him. But, the Twitter GMs want to say, I told you. Let's see him for a game. And Tim Boyle has to start on Friday. Or if you start Trevor Siemian, fine. Zach Wilson cannot and will not be the starting quarterback on Black Friday when the Jets take on the Dolphins, where they will probably get hosed no matter who the quarterback is. And that's people's argument. No one's going to make a difference behind this offense. But you got to hold the guy accountable. You got to make a change. And they did during this game. It was ugly. It's not really the best time to make the change because the game's already over. But now's the time to make the change and don't look back. It's over. You cannot put Zach Wilson out there again unless, Siemian and Boyle get hurt. To be honest, I would not even make him active on Friday. Boyle, Siemian, and make Zach inactive. You want to hold him accountable? Get it done. And now everyone's pressing. Sauce was terrible today. Gives up the 81-yard touchdown. Has the inexcusable just lack of disciplined team. This friendly, everybody happy, good playing team coached by Robert Saleh once again throws, I believe it was Stephon Diggs to the ground, 15-yard penalty. Leads to a score. And for the love of God, can the Jets defense stop a running back from catching a ball and scoring? Ty Johnson revenge game. James Cook gets a ball and scores a touchdown. This game, I can't blame the defense because they've carried this team all season. And all these mistakes are adding up. And this side's frustrated. This side's frustrated. This side, it is just terrible football across the board. Terrible, as they said, from top to bottom. Joe Douglas did a piss-poor job constructing this roster and not giving the Jets an insurance option behind Aaron Rodgers. When Rodgers went down, I knew in that game this season was probably over. I was there at the game, and it was demoralizing because you knew, as Cos will always say, you try to twist yourself into a pretzel to believe Zach Wilson was the guy. Well, when Zach Wilson is not now, Tim Boyle's not the guy, neither is Trevor Siemian, and you're screwed, and the season's over. And the New York Jets, once again, continue the longest active streak in sports without making the playoffs. And as Breece Hall said, I feel bad for the Jets fan base. They deserve better. We do. Usually say I do when you're marrying someone. As Jets fans, we have married this pathetic franchise. So we say we do. And yes, the answer is not I do. It's we do. We do deserve better from a team year after year that raises our hopes in the offseason with a good draft, a good signing. They get Aaron Rodgers, one Jets drive, Hard Knocks. It was a fantasy land. We were La La Land. Aaron Rodgers was Ryan Gosling, and we were all Emma Stone or whoever the other actress was in that movie. And it was too good to be true. And now it flipped itself on its head, and the Jets are screwed. And here we are, Aaron Rodgers, look at the tape. He's exercising. He's blowing the Jets away. The Jets are 4-6, and they would be absolute fools if they brought Aaron Rodgers back. And if Aaron Rodgers decided to come back. Barring a miraculous win on Black Friday to get to 5-6, barring a couple of game win streak, which I don't see coming, you cannot put Aaron Rodgers out there and jeopardize the 2024 season because we're all holding our hats, and that glimmer of hope, that glimmer of light, that light above me right there, that light is Aaron Rodgers. And the hope is that he comes and saves the Jets next season and the playoff drought finally ends. At 40 years old, we are hoping a 40-year-old quarterback saves the Jets' playoff misery. Because, for God, we know Tim Boyle's not. We know Trevor Siemian's not. But you want to talk about accountability, now's the time. You made the switch a couple weeks later than you should have, but better late than never. Now you got to start quarterback. And by the time people listen to this, Saleh may have already announced on Monday who it's going to be. Those two words cannot be Zach Wilson. We've seen the end. He didn't complete one ball to a wide receiver. The telltale sign of how bad this was for the Jets was the play of the game was the friend of the program, Thomas Morstead's completion, which should have been 44 yards to Brandon Echols. Brandon Echols was the best Jets receiver today, and he had to be the third cornerback because Michael Carter, the cornerback, was hurt and out. And boy, was that a big loss for this defense. You saw them just break down the middle of the field. And they could not cover a running. I mean, that was a big loss, Michael Carter not being available for this game. And Eccles made up for it with the 4th and 2. The Jets showing some balls. They get that first down. They get another first down, a 4th down. The Jets were great on 4th down. Here's the problem. They didn't convert 1 3rd down. I've never seen a team so bad on 3rd down. That is their kryptonite. Just skip 3rd down and go to 4th. And the defense broke down today. But listen, the time of possession was 37 minutes to 23. They were on the field the whole game. The Jets had no long drive outside of the touchdown drive. Their first touchdown drive, hallelujah, in 12 quarters, in 40 possessions. Their offense gave the defense no shot. These guys were gassed. And the Bills had more penalties. But the Jets had a couple of backbreakers. The Sauce penalty was huge. Can't happen. The play was over. Don't throw him to the ground. You made all the change in the book. You put Ruckert out there. You put Jason Brownlee out there. You made Dalvin Cook the 3rd down back. You cut Michael Carter. You did all these things, and it didn't do anything. And this is a pathetic product that we continue to watch on offense. And I understand it's still probably not going to look good with Tim Boyle, but at least give him this week, this limited week of practice, give him those first team reps. Let's see what he got. Because you could read me his stats. You could read me his stats as a backup. He really hasn't had much of a chance in the NFL. I understand he's not good. I know his college stats are terrible, but that's who you have. I've said it enough. Douglas, awful. Terrible job not giving this team quarterback. Josh Dobb, hindsight's 2020, Jake. Josh Dobb continues to light it up. He didn't look great. He still had better numbers with the Cardinals, even though they were losing than Zach Wilson has had. So don't give me that crap. Josh Dobbs is better than Zach Wilson, and you messed up by not trading and upgrading at quarterback because you were so blinded by the light, blinded by the Zach, that this is what has come of it. Well, blind loyalty has you at 4-6, your playoff hopes down the toilet, and you really had a shot if you pulled off a win today. Because the Chargers lost, the Bengals lost this week, and now Joe Burrow is done for the season. The Steelers lost today. The Raiders lost today. I mean, it was like the Red Sea's parting in that wild card race. But in the end, you look right in the mirror. You lost. And Zach Wilson is lost. And he's no longer getting behind center. Barring an injury, he doesn't belong a spot behind center ever again as a New York Jet. Maybe it's somewhere else as a backup. Maybe it's the Commanders. Maybe it's somewhere west of the Mississippi. Send him as far away from East Rutherford as you can. And listen, the offensive line sucked today. I can't even blame them that much. They got 4 backups out there. Becton injury was brutal. That's a killer. Playing a lot of backups. The play calling, we're beating the same drum here. Nathaniel Hackett sucked. They didn't do anything different. The schematic changes my ass. The line sucked. The receivers sucked. Garrett sucked. But I'm sick of the excuses for the quarterback. This is 3 years of this garbage. And Boyle could suck it up on Friday, and everyone's going to tweet me, see, Jake, look, Boyle or Simeon's going to go out there. See? It made no difference. I want to just see it, and we deserve to see it. We deserve to see someone else. Because who knows? Maybe Boyle's competent enough, and the offense is competent enough, they get better, and they find a way to beat the Dolphins. But right now, the Jets don't look like a team that could beat anyone, no matter who the quarterback is. But accountability is accountability, and it's time to make the change. Let's talk to Brian Costello. All right, you heard enough out of me, because we bring in Brian Costello coming live from Buffalo. I said it seems like the Zach Wilson era is now over. What say you?
I'm not so sure, Jake. I mean, the only thing that gives me pause is the setup of this week. I think if it was a normal week, I'd be with you, but they're not going to have any real practices this week. So they're going to do is walkthroughs. I'm not sure you can prepare a new quarterback without having one practice. So I think with that in mind, you might let Zach have Friday's game and again, pull him if he struggles, and with in mind that there's probably going to be a different starter against Atlanta. But But yeah, I just the idea of starting a quarterback without practicing once with the first team makes me hesitate. Now, maybe they're to a point where they're just like, who cares? But that's the only thing that's holding me back.
I laugh at the people were tweeting me, look, you got what you wanted. You got Boyle. See what happens. He came in a 29-6 game for a quarter. And I'm not saying he's good, but like, can we at least put him to start a game and see what he has for an entire game?
Yeah.
I thought he at least got rid of the ball quickly. Obviously, through the interception and should have had a second interception. He wasn't good, but like he at least made quick decisions. I'd like to see him for a full game before everyone wants to just write him off already.
Yeah, that was an impossible situation. 29-6, the Bills are just, pinning their ears back and coming full flying at you. And yeah, the guy has never practiced with the first team. Never. He's never out of practice with the starters. So throwing to Garrett Wilson, that's the first time he's probably ever thrown to Garrett Wilson because he didn't do it in training camp. He was the third string quarterback in training camp, and he certainly hasn't done it during the season. So yeah, I think he needs some time to work with these guys, and that's why I sort of hesitate with the game being on Friday to say, yeah, the Zach Wilson time is definitely done with the Jets. But that being said, Jake, like, yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if they're like they come out tomorrow and say Boyle's the guy. But I also in the back of my mind, it's maybe Atlanta's the time when you make the change.
What was your take on the game overall? Like, in my opinion, I joked that what's Hackett's up in the box, what he's going to call plays on the moon next game, moving him up made a difference. I know offensive line was bad. There were injuries. Becton's out. You got 4 backup offensive linemen. They didn't have a catch from a receiver until Boyle came in. It was Conklin, Ruckert, and Brees Hall were the only catches with Zach at quarterback. What was your whole take on this game as a whole?
The receiver thing's a little, I mean, not that this makes it much better. Lazard had a catch, it was wiped out. Mm-hmm. There's pass interference. So he did throw completed pass to receiver. It just didn't count. When I look at this offensive line, Jake, I don't care if you put Patrick Mahomes back there right now. You're not going to have much success. Carter Warren, was he a 4th round pick? I think. Mm-hmm. He's not supposed to play this year. Like and he had nothing in the offseason. He had no offseason work. He's been in practice for a few weeks. They don't want him to play. Chris Glazer, he's not supposed to be a starter. That's the first time he ever started a game. So you basically had 2 guys out there. This is the first time they've ever played in an NFL game. Really, Glazer, I think, has played a little bit of special teams the last couple of weeks, but and then Max Mitchell's he's a 4th round pick who he shouldn't be out there. Joe Tippmann he's a backup, but he's legit 2nd round pick. You expected him to play this year, but right now that leaves you with 2 guys, Tippmann and Tomlinson, that I would consider NFL starter quality. Hard to win like that, That's why they can't run the ball. That's why Zach did not play well. I'm not saying he did, but he was sacked 5 times. There was people on his face all day. I just don't know what you do right now. I don't know how to fix that. They have too many injuries in the offensive line, and yeah, it's life in the NFL. But it's just you can't function like that. And I thought the defense had a bad game. I've been saying on here for a while. At some point, the defense is not going to be able to play the way they've been playing. And it was today. Josh Allen, I thought, played really well. Obviously, the 81-yard touchdown was huge. So it's just someone was just texting me about the O-line.
What did they say?
I'm not going to repeat it, but just it's they're struggling. So and you start off the game with a special teams fumble. Right. So
that was a sign it was going to be a bad day. When that happened, I'm like, it's over.
It's hard. It's like, yeah. So it's tough, right, Jake? Because I feel it. I feel for them in some regard. Like some people are like, well, what? Like the offensive line, and right now they're relying. They're trying to say like, oh, Xavier Gibson or Jason Brown. Like these guys are undrafted free agents. That you're not supposed to count on them. So. Yes, they're undermanned right now. Part of it's of their own doing because I just like what they did at receiver is no good. Like Alan Lazard is not good. Randall Cobb is not good. McCole Hardman was not good. Like these were their guys. Like this is the fourth year or the third year of Saleh and Douglas, and Douglas's fifth year, whatever. Like this is not a Mike McCagnon anymore. This is not an Adam Gase anymore. Like this is they cried about what they inherited, like every coach and GM does, but they've had time now to fix this. And the receiver room, they're worse this year at receiver than they were last year. Jake, think about Elijah Moore and Braxton Berrios.
How much I'd love to have those two back right now. I didn't think I'd be thinking that.
Like they were better. They were better at receiver last year, which is incredible to say. So you can make the change at quarterback, and I would not argue with you to make the change at quarterback, but I don't really know what that's going to fix right now.
Yeah, but I don't know if it'll make a difference. Well, let's see it for a game. We saw it for a quarter. It's an impossible situation. Like you said, no practices, and I'm not saying Boyle's any good. His career numbers aren't good, and someone tweeted me his numbers at UConn were like one touchdown, like 12 interceptions or something ridiculous. But you got to see it at this point. We got to see it for a game. And unfortunately for them, they're in the worst spot where they have a stupid Black Friday game, the first ever Black Friday game. Oh, it's the game the Jets have to win or their playoff hopes are officially over. And, Aaron Rodgers isn't coming. I pointed at the light above me, and that was the one positive bright light. The future was Aaron Rodgers. Everything else is crumbling. You mentioned Joe Douglas, roster construction. Josh Dobbs continues doing great things, although tonight, as we're recording, finishing up, the Broncos win again. The Broncos are now 5-5. Maybe that Jets loss fired them up because they look like a completely different team.
It's not who you play, Jake. It's when you play them, right? And I think if the Jets played the Broncos today, the Jets would lose to the Broncos.
Yep.
They caught them at the right time, and that works both ways, right? And I think they caught the Bills at a bad time, right? The offensive coordinator change may have sparked something with the Bills. Their offense played very well today, and so I think that's a problem. And who knows where you are with the Dolphins? I only saw a little bit of that game with the Raiders. It looked like they struggled against the Raiders, but we'll see where they're at.
They might score 40. I mean, Sauce was bad. Garrett was bad. Jets defense was bad. They were due for a bad game, and I think they're just putting so much pressure on themselves to be perfect. And it was a true telling sign when Zach Wilson fell running on the field that it was going to be bad because he threw an interception basically twice that drive. The first one was dropped, and then the second one, I don't know what the hell he was doing that second throw. I'm just sick of the excuses. It's 3 years of excuses, and you got to start thinking: is Joe Douglas going to get fired? Like you got to start thinking how bad this roster.
No one's getting fired.
Not this week, but after the season.
No one's getting fired after this season.
You don't think so? Okay.
No, the plan was Aaron Rodgers, and in their defense, their plan was Aaron Rodgers, and they lost him 4 plays into the season. Everyone has to keep that in mind. This was not like. Should it look better than it looks? Abso-freaking-lutely. And you can turn on the TV and you can watch the Browns win with DTR at quarterback, and you can watch the Vikings come close with Dobbs, and he plays well, and you can watch the Giants win with Tommy DeVito and say, look, you can win with a backup quarterback. The Jets won 4 games with Zach Wilson somehow, some way. 2 of those games, 3 of those games, they absolutely stole. I think Buffalo, Philly, Giants, they probably shouldn't have won those games, and they did. So it's not to let them off the hook completely, but I do think they deserve a year with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback with like they planned. And I think he is going to say that to Woody Johnson.
Yeah, and they got to get it right with around him. They can't they had no insurance policy. Get rid of Boyle, get rid of Simeon, get rid of Zach. Get me an actual NFL backup quarterback.
Yeah, I think what you're going to see at quarterback this offseason, Jake, is a veteran come in that a legitimate veteran backup quarterback, and I think they're going to draft a quarterback. I'm not saying in the first round, but I think they will draft a quarterback. At some point in the draft and have a guy that they're developing, because that's the way. That's what you want. You want someone you're bringing along. So I think that's what they'll do at quarterback, but it's a long way off, Jake.
4-6. This was a team that we were talking about in the playoff race. They would now have to win every game but one to even be considered. And the chips were all falling their way. Listen, the Chargers lost, the Raiders lost, the Bengals lost and lose Joe Burrow for the year. The Steelers lost. Do you think
dominoes falling. Do you think 9 and 8 could make the playoffs now with the injuries?
Probably not with the tiebreaker situation and the way the Texans are playing. I don't think 9 and 8 would do it for the Jets. Maybe for another team.
Yeah.
But they're going to lose out because they lose the Chargers tiebreaker. If they lose to the Texans, they lose that tiebreaker.
Yeah, they have to beat. Well, they have to beat the Texans. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
they're gonna have to. They'd have to win that game. But I just think maybe with the quarterback injuries now, maybe 9-8 gets there. It's the seventh seed. But
To fathom
look,
them winning
I
five
mean,
games, though, Kaz, is like
like
insanity.
we shouldn't even it's not even a conversation.
Yeah.
It's silly to talk about the playoffs, right? Like they scored 6 points today. They scored 12 points last week. They scored 6 points the week before. Like they can't score. So it's stupid to talk about the playoffs right now.
Yeah, and the personnel changes, the schematic changes, the players
How about
only
that
meeting.
players only meeting, Jake?
Players only. What do they have? A slice of New York pizza? Sauce Carter, New York pizza for the first time in his life.
I love players only meetings. They're my favorite things. They're so stupid.
We need a Jets therapy meeting where fans just sit and console our thoughts because this season is down the wayside.
How ugly do you think Friday will be at MetLife?
I'm glad I'm not going because I'm
Like
flying back.
if they start Zach, will it be like they're gonna?
Oh, he will get booed out of town on the field, except for the truthers. The Zach Wilson truthers will be out cheering him on and saying it's everyone else's fault but him. We're 3 years into this. The truthers got to take a seat and go on a vacation. Enough's enough with the truthers, because you got to start Boyle. I mean, that's it. I mean, like you said, like you can't. I don't think you could start Simeon because he really hasn't played with these guys. At least Boyle's got a quarter under his belt now. Simeon, I think, might be better, but
you can't do that to Tim Boyle. He's been the backup all year. Like he deserves a shot. And if Simeon was any good, he would have been made the backup. So he clearly hasn't been good in practice. But I just don't know if they can do it, Jake, without a practice this week.
A quarter is like a practice. I don't know, like a quarter and 2 minutes or 17 minutes, 27-13 time. I mean, or what was it? 27-13, I believe, time of possession.
How about Solid trying to tackle Zach Wilson on the sideline there? Like he took a shot.
Oh yeah. Oh, even Salah's defensive Zach has fallen. I mean, that's it. 37-23, excuse me, was the time of possession. So the defense was out there a long time. It doesn't seem like any of the changes have made a difference. From
I mean, there was a point in the second quarter, Jake, where they had 0 yards.
Yep.
In the middle of the second quarter, right? Because the sacks and everything. Like, yeah, it's 155 total yards. The best play of the game was a punter to a cornerback. Your number one pass play of the game was a punter throwing to a cornerback. Let that sink in. That was the best play the Jets had all day long. It was,
and even that went wrong because it was going to be 44 yards and it went for 18.
But like, that's where you're at. And they scored a touchdown. So they broke that little streak there, but then they went right back into the tank after that. And it's hard to believe that it's another year like this, Jake. Just another freaking terrible season.
Longest drought in sports. The longest active streak in sport lives on another year unless they pull off a miracle. And you cannot fathom. I said this in the open. There's the Aaron Rodgers talk every week. You can't even. You say, Aaron, go home. Don't bring him back. I don't care if they win Friday. Do not bring him back.
Well, this is going to be the interesting question, Jake. And I said this the last time I think we talked. What is in the mix, right? Because they're not going to be mathematically eliminated until probably like Cleveland. Like that's like it's hard to be mathematically eliminated with 7 teams in the playoffs now, right? Like remember last year they lost all those games in the year. They weren't mathematically eliminated until they lost in Seattle. So they're not going. I don't think they're going to lose out right now. If
they lose to the Dolphins, Falcons, Texans, they're 4-9. They're done. They're done by December 10th, and which is before the day he's expected to come back.
Let's say they lose to the Dolphins, but they beat the Falcons and the Texans.
If they beat CJ Stroud, I'm buying Mega Millions tickets at this point.
Oh, come on, Jake. He's not. I know he's had a great season. He's not freaking Tom Brady yet. So, but let's say that would be 6-7 going to Miami, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And let's say Aaron says, I'm ready to play against Miami.
I guess if you're 6-7, fine. If he's got to win 4. But I just don't think it's the brightest idea.
I know. I think it is a fascinating decision that they have to make because I just don't think I don't think it's gonna be cut and dried. Like you're gonna be just completely be out of it. I think it's gonna be one of these things where you're like, well, if we win every game the rest of the way, we'll make the playoff. But I think it's gonna be a very, very interesting decision for them.
Well, the decision won't have to be discussed if they lose to Miami. If you're 4-7, good night, sayonara. You do not even touch the idea of bringing back Aaron Rodgers. I don't care if you beat the Falcons the next week, 4-7. You have to win out. You have to go 6-0. So it's over. That's a wrap.
But what if I don't know? I don't know. 9-8. I think it might be a possibility.
Stop. You just want the drama. You just want all the drama in the world with this team. And listen, it makes for better stories. You need it. This show.
I know. Like, I've lived it, Jake. I just know how this works. Like it's not like you have to be really, really terrible to really be completely out of it mathematically. Like you can look at it and most of the teams are still in it in a few weeks. So I don't know. And I just don't know. I just don't know where Rodgers is at in terms of that. Like I'd like hopefully, Pat McAfee or somebody asks him this week, like, or if he talks to him, like, okay, what does in the mix look like for you? Is it mathematically you have to be in it, or do you have to like have a realistic, like you're a game out? Because they're 2 games behind the teams at 6th and 7th right now. So, and they play one of them. They play the Texans.
Ty Johnson scored a touchdown. Ty Johnson!
That's a revenge game. And Shaq Lawson had a sack, Jake. Can I tell you that when remember they traded for Shaq Lawson, what was it? 2021, I think, right?
The years are all a blur, so sure.
Yeah, I think it was Sal's first year. They traded for Shaq Lawson. There was a lot of excitement when they traded for him before the season. And one of the other beat writers wasn't high on the move, and I bet him that Shaq Lawson would have 3 sacks, and he didn't have 3 sacks, Jake, the whole season. So I texted that person. That person is no longer a beat writer, but I texted him today, and I said, if only he had faced the Jets' offensive line back then. Shaq Lawson, Ty Johnson. I like Ty
Johnson. The University of Maryland product scores on the Jets' kryptonite, a play action running back getting on the right side. Can they ever cover a running back? I mean, he had one and Cook had one on simple, just out routes for running back.
Well, the Cook one was a nice play. Cook that was a pick. They did a nice like mesh play pick. That was a nice.
More than one, they had to see a play action of the running back coming, and it did, and it got them, and it beat them, and the Jets were crushed. Well, we won't have a preview show for the Dolphins, so
we won't.
It's Thanksgiving. I'm not releasing a show on Thanksgiving, and this team is not worth our time. I'd rather be doing anything else. So let's say Tim Boyle's the quarterback.
Let's talk about Thanksgiving instead, Jake. What's your favorite side dish?
I think stuffing is a little overrated.
Oh,
I like cornbread and then the muffins. I like the biscuits. The biscuits with butter are probably my favorite because bread, you just can never go wrong with any kind of bread.
Stuffing's great though.
What is yours? Yours is stuffing?
Stuffing would definitely be number 1. Yeah.
Stuffing's fine. It's not my favorite. Honestly, I think Thanksgiving food's a bit overrated. Like turkey to me is a little bit dry. I'm not the biggest turkey guy.
Yeah, I get it, but you have it once a year. It's like a special thing. And like, have you ever had a deep fried turkey, Jay?
I don't think so. That sounds better, actually.
That's very good because that's not dry. Yeah.
I need a deep fried turkey. Yeah.
Yeah.
But without gravy, turkey is terrible to me. Like I eat enough.
One time, this place I worked at one time when I worked in an office in a newspaper, and I worked on Thanksgiving, this woman made turkey and it was wrapped in bacon.
That I could get behind.
That was phenomenal because the juice of the bacon goes into the turkey. So it's really juicy. So this is much better conversation than talking about Jets-Dolphins. Okay.
Well, yeah. Well, listen. Do you think they get crushed? Do they lose? Do they win? I assume they're gonna lose.
I assume they're gonna lose. Do they get crushed? I don't know. With this defense, I usually don't expect them to get crushed. So I don't think they'll get crushed. But yeah, I think they're gonna lose. I think they'll lose comfortably. Say that. Like I don't think it's gonna be tight.
At least when they're on Sunday, I enjoyed the week. Now they have to open up the week, and I fly back from Charlotte Friday, get in at 2 p.m., I watch the Jets. I'll record a quick little 15-minute show, and then have to react to, and then ruin the weekend. And then the whole weekend, Jets lose, season over. Now it's Friday night, and I'm talking about this team's
Maybe the
playoff.
Mets will sign the pitcher from Japan, Jake.
I hope so. The Mets have to save this, and the Knicks have been good, and the Rangers have been good. So the other teams are doing fine.
But nothing would get you more excited than a big Mets signing over the weekend.
Mets are my number one team in
Yeah,
sports over everything. I am the Mets guy, so like that will be very nice. But the Jets, I think they'll lose Friday, but got to start Tim Boyle. Sorry, no more Zach. It's over. End the era. It was a failure. Joe Douglas missed out. They finally made the switch. It was late. Honestly, they didn't score there in the first half. I thought at halftime they were going to make the switch, but when they scored the touchdown, you couldn't take him out there, even if he had 2 4th down conversions and a penalty that helped make that happen. And it was just Brees Hall show. It was just dump off Brees, dump off Brees. And we saw a little Izzy at the end, not enough. Maybe we see that on Friday, but he did have a nice 11-yard run in garbage time. But yes, please stop with the look, you saw Boyle. It was a quarter in a 29-6 game. Get a reality check and stop saying that.
I'd still like to see more Dalvin Cook, DJ.
Yeah, who would have thought you'd be saying that? I mean,
yeah, I think he looks better now than he did at the beginning of the year. I don't know what his final numbers were today, but I didn't think they gave him the ball enough. I know look like Brees is a weapon catching the ball. It's not working running the ball right now at Brees, so I don't think it's his fault. But I would just try mixing it up a little bit with Dalvin.
2 carries, 13 yards.
That's right. And then they had the two of them in the backfield together a few times, which I like that look. I like the pony, putting the two of them together. So I would try that more.
Alan Lazard, 4 years, $44 million. Today, 0 catches, 0 yards outside the one that was the pass interference that didn't count as a catch. I mean, my God, that is just looking worse and worse as each week goes by. And Joe Douglas, if he still has a job this offseason, man, does he have to reconstruct this roster from quarterback to receiver. Defense is pretty fine, and punter's great. Kicker's great. They got that covered. Might need a new kick return. No, Xavier Gipson, listen, it was a tough break. But this team is crumbling before our eyes. Well, we hope you all have a happy Thanksgiving. We'll have a quick post-game show on Friday, and we'll close this episode of Gangs All Here next. All righty. What a depressing franchise the New York Jets are. So that says goodnight to episode 165 of Gangs All Here, a Jets podcast with the New York Post. Thanks to Andrew Hartz and the intern Mason Verdicchio for helping me produce the show. Subscribe to Gangs All Here wherever you get podcasts. That's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, Amazon. Give us a 5-star rating, write a nice review, and subscribe to the New York Post Sports YouTube page. You can watch full episodes of me and Kaz there. Kaz hatless in Seattle, hatless in Buffalo on this episode, showing off the bald dome. Looked like he had a nice shave. So I like to see, I feel like Kaz always has a hat on. That honestly might be the first episode he's just had full bald, either that or is a full clean shaven dome. I don't know what it was, but he looked different. So shout out to Kaz for showing off the bald dome. Follow me on Twitter at Jake Brown Radio. Follow Kaz at Brian Kaz. No preview show this week. We don't even know who the quarterback is. The game is on Friday. Thursday's Thanksgiving. No use for a preview. So we'll have a post show. Me and likely a guest co-host after the game, Black Friday game on Friday. So that should drop sometime Friday night. And we'll see if the Jets pull out a miracle win, season alive. They lose. It's pretty much a wrap. The loss means you have to go 6-0 the rest of the season in order to make the playoffs. 5-1 if you get lucky and a bunch of teams lose. Other than that, this season looks toast. For Brian Costello, I'm Jake Brown. We hope you all have a happy, healthy Thanksgiving. Enjoy your meals. Enjoy the time with your family, your loved ones. Try not to think about the Jets and just go out and enjoy life and be thankful. I'm thankful to be in this position where I am, to do this show, to you for listening to the show, to the people who enjoy listening to me, to the people who hate me, to the tweet haters, to the tweet lovers. It's all love. And I'm thankful for all of you, even if you do, because we're all Jets fans here and we're all hoping for a win. Even if we disagree on quarterback, offensive line, coaching, this, that, we all have one common goal. And that's for the hope that the Jets end this stupid 12+ year playoff drought and finally get to the playoffs. It might not be this year, but let's hope and let's be thankful that it's Aaron Rodgers maybe next year leading the Jets to the promised land. After all that rambling, that's enough. Thanks for listening to Gangs All Year. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Peace.